Hey fam, this is Kenny Feinstein, author of More Than Talent, 7 Steps to Attain the Brand, Acquire the Gigs, and Amass Lifetime Fans. My #1 best-selling book on the music business out now. You're listening to the Your Morning Coffee podcast with my friends Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart, weekly music news for the new music business.
From Tim Ingham at Music Business Worldwide, Spotify slashes streams of hit song after suspicious activity on prediction market Kalshi.
And for Murray Stassen at Music Business Worldwide, Viberate opens music data to ChatGPT, Claude, and other AI bots via official MCP server launch.
Another one from Murray Stassen. Google says AI training is fair use and copyright should be policed on outputs, not inputs.
And from Jesse Kirschbaum, he's the co-founder of the new agency, the trends defining music, culture, and brand marketing in 2026. So all of this, plus you'll hear artist manager and advocate Randy Nichols testify for assembly bills protecting fans, artists, and promoters from speculative tickets and industrial scale scalping. So with that, we're glad you're here. We're going to start the show right about now.
Stand by for transmission.
This is London calling.
Wake up! The revolution is at hand! Your morning coffee is on the air. On the air, on the air, on the air, on the air, on the air.
Standing by.
Your morning coffee, the weekly music news for the new music business. It's the highly curated, agitated, advocated, moderated, and liberated digital music information that you need to know. We are your digital music authority. And now from our studios in Hollywood, California, here's your hosts, Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart.
Well, Jay, belated happy 4th of July if you're in the States like we are. Good to see you on a lovely day here in Southern California.
Yeah, it's just been beautiful lately. Before we jump into the stories, there were a couple of late-breaking things that caught our attention that I wanted to mention really quick. One is from Stuart Dredge over at Music Ally. We love the work that they do over there. The headline was 69% of Spotify streams in the U.S. go to American artists. So the U.S. is the biggest recorded music market in the world, of course, and it's one where domestic artists are taking a big share of streams, and that's according to Spotify.
Yes, and in a blog post that the company pegged to the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Declaration of Independence, they said 69% of all streams in the country go to American artists, and American music makes up 70% of the Spotify Top 50 chart in the U.S. in 2025.
Yeah, there's also some stats on exports. In the past year alone, people outside the U.S. stream songs featuring at least one American artist 776 billion times, according to Spotify.
Yikes. Country music gets its own big figure, too. Streams of American country music on Spotify outside the U.S. have nearly doubled over the last 5 years. That's up 94%. This is all good news for the U.S. industry, but there's a flip side for other key English-speaking markets, the UK, Canada, and Australia.
Right, and all of them have had concerns about the health of their own domestic scenes in recent years. With the strength of U.S. music, the questions about the extent to which that's boosted by recommendation algorithms, from these streaming services, that's a hot topic in those countries.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting. Another interesting story. This is from Joe Taysom over at Far Out Magazine. Elton John set for hologram residency in Las Vegas, report claims. So Elton John has reportedly signed a deal that will see a hologram version of the Rocket Man perform a Las Vegas residency.
Yeah, Elton John retired from touring in 2023 with his extensive farewell Yellow Brick Road tour, which began in 2018. and then finally reached its conclusion in 2023. Since then, Elton John has continued to release music. However, he's kept live performances limited and stayed true to his word about retiring from actual touring.
Well, now The Sun has reported that John has penned a multi-million-dollar deal which will see him perform as a hologram at the new Hard Rock Hotel in Las Vegas, which is currently on schedule to open in late of 2027. Elton John has yet to confirm whether he's signed a deal with Hard Rock, though.
Yeah, we'll see. You know, Elton's been critical of hologram tours. You know, he stated in a New York press conference in 2018 that his eldest son, Zachary, you know, he told him, when daddy dies, promise me there won't be a hologram going around the world doing concerts. So I thought that was really super interesting. We'll see if that comes to pass. And before we jump into the big stories this week, let's thank our sponsors.
Absolutely. Support for the show comes from Cosign. Cosign is a reimagined publishing administration platform launched by independent music publisher Cobalt.
Right. It's designed for artists, producers, and songwriters. It allows creators to collect global publishing royalties with simple, transparent terms and no long-term contracts.
In its first year of operation, Cosign was named one of the 10 most innovative music companies by Fast Company. Find out why at cosignmusic.com. And boy, you know what? Every weekend, it seems, I get to hang out with my good friend, Jay Gilbert, music business consultant, educator, curator to the weekly Your Morning Coffee newsletter, and former executive with Universal Music, Sony Music, and Warner Music Groups.
Right, and every weekend I get to sit down and have some virtual coffee with my friend Mike Etchart, longtime host of Sound and Vision Radio, formerly of SST Records, Warner Music, Capital EMI, and Universal Music Group.
All right, well, I say we jump into the stories, Jay.
Let's do it. Lots to cover this week. The first one from Tim Ingham at Music Business Worldwide. Spotify slashes streams of hit song after suspicious activity on prediction market Kalshi. Spotify removed 500,000 registered streams from Malcolm Todd's Earrings after the song's sudden jump to number one on the platform's daily U.S. chart was linked to betting activity on Kalshi, the prediction market.
Yeah, streams climbed roughly 70% in a single day to hit number one on June 29th. That was first reported by the Financial Times, before Spotify identified the spike as artificial and knocked the track back down to number 4. That was per Bloomberg. Spotify says it doesn't pay royalties on manipulated streams and has best-in-class detection for stream manipulation. There's no suggestion Todd or his team had any part in this.
Right, but here's the catch. By the time Spotify caught the manipulation, the inflated numbers had already been used to settle a Kalshi contract on June's most streamed Spotify song in the U.S., a market that drew about $3 million in trades, and Kalshi had already paid out bettors based on the bad data. Kalshi says it's now investigating with Spotify. The tip-off reportedly came from a Kalshi trader who tracks Spotify chart data for betting purposes and got suspicious when the song Earrings, that's a song from Todd's 2024 mixtape, released to pop radio in April via Columbia Records after a TikTok resurgence, when that song suddenly leapt to number one after weeks of sitting in the top 5.
Yeah, Spotify has also demanded Kalshi and rival Polymarket remove its logo from their platforms to clarify there's no partnership, and told The Hollywood Reporter it will add extra checks before publishing charts going forward. This isn't Spotify's first manipulation crackdown. It pulled AI-generated Boomy tracks back in 2023 for the same reason, and comes weeks after a federal judge dismissed a class action alleging Spotify allowed billions of fraudulent Drake streams.
Wow. So here's what you need to know. Prediction markets have created a new direct financial incentive to fake streams. Kalshi music contracts had already topped $400 million in trading volume in 2026 as of late April, per its COO, meaning real money now rides on chart outcomes that can be gamed for a fraction of the payout.
Yeah, the exploit is structurally simple. Whoever holds a large enough position on a song hitting number one can buy artificial streams cheaper than the winnings they'd collect, effectively turning Spotify's charts into a market that can be front-run.
Wow. So Kalshi already paid out bettors on that flawed June most streamed contract. about $3 million, before catching that manipulation. So raising the question of who eats the loss when a market settles a fraudulent data claim. The manipulation was caught by, well, it wasn't caught by Spotify's internal systems first, but flagged by an outside Kalshi trader who analyzed Spotify's public chart data. A sign chart watchers may now be better positioned to spot anomalies than the platform itself.
Wow. Well, Spotify's response was to strip streams, deny royalties, and promise additional checks to the charts before they're published. Reactive fixes rather than a structural defense against betting-driven manipulation. Spotify explicitly distanced itself from Kalshi and Polymarket, demanding both remove its logo, signaling Spotify wants no perceived endorsement of markets that bet on its own chart integrity.
Right. And this artist, Malcolm Todd, he and his team were cleared of any involvement, underscoring that artists can become collateral damage in manipulation schemes, that they have nothing to do with, reputational and financial risk regardless of fault. This follows a pattern. Spotify pulled AI-generated Boomy tracks that you mentioned in 2023 for similar accused manipulation, showing stream fraud detection is an ongoing arms race rather than a solved problem, for sure.
Yeah, well, it also lands right after a federal judge dismissed a class action over alleged billions of fraudulent Drake streams, a reminder that stream manipulation allegations against Spotify are a recurring legal and PR flashpoint. Kalshi still lists dozens of active contracts tied to Spotify and Billboard chart outcomes, meaning the underlying incentive structure remains in place even after this incident. This likely won't be the last case.
Yeah, absolutely not. And finally, the story raises a bigger structural question for the music industry. Should streaming platforms treat prediction market-linked songs differently? That's a good question. Or push regulators to address the conflict of interest baked into betting on manipulated metrics. Something we haven't talked about much and something that's not going to go away anytime soon. Super interesting piece from Tim Ingham.
Yes, certainly is. Our next piece is from Murray Stassen at Music Business Worldwide. Viberate opens music data to ChatGPT, Claude, and other AI bots via official MCP server launch. So music data company Viberate has launched an official MCP, that's Model Context Protocol, server, letting users of Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok, and other AI assistants query its full data set. That's more than 11 million artists, more than 100 million songs, around 19 million playlists, 160,000 or so plus labels, 7,000 festivals. It's a lot of data in plain language.
That's right. And for those that are new to this, an MCP is Model Context Protocol. And it's really fairly simple. It's a standard that lets an AI assistant like Claude or ChatGPT actually plug into your business tools like Gmail, QuickBooks, HubSpot, Spotify data, your calendar, and in this case, Viberate instead of just chatting in a box.
Right. The MCP is an open source standard introduced by Anthropic that allows AI assistants to securely connect to external data sources, tools, and systems. It functions kind of like a USB-C for AI, giving models a universal plug-and-play interface to retrieve real-time data and take actions instead of relying solely on static training.
Right. So instead of building custom APIs for every AI application, developers can write an MCP server once, and any compatible AI application can use it. So great piece this week from Murray Stassen. He talks about how, this is the first move in what Viberate, they're from Slovenia, this company that we've used for years. It's something, it was co-founded by Vasya Weber, and Matej Grigoricic, and DJ Umek. They all co-founded this company, and they call it this AI first pivot. So Weber, Viberate CCO, argues the whole business intelligence sector is heading toward becoming a data layer that AI agents read rather than a platform humans click through. And it predicts more people will access Viberate's numbers via an AI assistant rather than Viberate's own site within a couple of years.
Beyond the open MCP server, there's a free tier plus a paid tier with 20 plus or so advanced tools, currently discounted 20% for early subscribers. Viberate is also building custom AI apps for select clients in private beta, trained on each client's own data. Weber frames the shift as removing the numbers person advantage in A&R management and promotion, the new differentiator being how well someone can frame a question, while still cautioning that AI output is only as good as the underlying data feeding it.
That's right. So here's what you need to know. Viberate, an artist, track, festival, everything, analytics company, most in the music industry, known for label and A&R workflows, just made its entire data set queryable directly inside Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok, etc., via MCP that we just talked about, a technical standard originally built by Anthropic that's become a common plug for AI to data integrations. It's actually quite simple. The company's leadership is betting that this AI chat interface eventually will eclipse its own dashboard as a primary way clients interact with the data, going so far as to call the platform obsolescence a real possibility in a few years.
There's a real pricing angle worth flagging on air here. Free tier for basic queries, paid tier unlocking 20 plus advanced tools with a 20% founding discount locked in for early adopters. Behind the public MCP launch, Viberate is also quietly building bespoke client-specific AI apps in private beta, meaning some labels may already be running custom tools nobody's talking about publicly yet. The company frames this as leveling the playing field. A&R people, managers, and promoters who were never comfortable staring at graphs can now just ask questions and get strategic answers, potentially closing the gap between data-savvy and non-data savvy industry players.
Yeah, and something worth noting for skeptics, this is company messaging from Viberate's own CCO in a piece essentially built around the launch. So the platform will become obsolete. Prediction is a bold claim from someone selling the tool, making that prediction. It also plugs into a bigger, ongoing music business worldwide storyline about AI reshaping music discovery, A&R, licensing. This is one of the more concrete product-level moves rather than just talk.
Viberate started in 2015 as an internal tool for the founder's own artist management business before becoming a market-wide analytics platform. And one co-founder is techno DJ Umek. So if the combined IQ of the world's best data scientists times 1,000,000 framing plays out, does that actually raise the floor for smaller labels or indie managers who couldn't previously afford a data analyst? Or does it just accelerate consolidation toward whoever has the best prompts?
I've been using this MCP, and Vasya showed it to me at Indie Week in New York, and I was just blown away. And the reason why, Mike, is you don't have to be a data scientist. You can just ask it, tell me about my artists this week. What playlists were we added to? Are there any spikes up or down? You set the parameters, but you can do it with a text prompt, but you can also set it up so you can use your own voice and just ask questions. So this is where we're going. Google MCP. Luminate's launching theirs. A lot of companies are launching MCPs, and it's just going to make using AI a whole lot simpler. There was a really interesting thing that I found on LinkedIn, and it was a post from our friend Randy Nichols. And there's a quote from him that bots buy tickets faster than you can, then scalpers sell you the tickets you couldn't get at a massive markup. So Randy just got back from Sacramento. Moving forward, this landmark consumer protection bill, actually there's a couple of them, Assembly Bills AB 1720 and AB 1349 for those keeping notes. But basically they're protecting fans, protecting artists and promoters from speculative tickets and industrial scale scalping. So this is a very short piece, but I think it's really important. Let's listen to Randy's testimony.
I'm Randy Nichols. I'm an artist manager and a board member of the National Independent Talent Organization. NITO represents agents and managers working with over 7,500 artists who perform in venues from Harlow's in Sacramento to SoFi Stadium in LA. We want to be crystal clear. AB 1720 has nothing to do with the Ticketmaster Live Nation monopoly. If AG Banta and partner states move to break up that monopoly, we stand in full support. The secondary market will claim they're Ticketmaster's competition. They're lying. They compete with the fans. Here's how it works. Bots buy tickets faster than you can. Then scalpers sell you the tickets you couldn't get at a massive markup. Then you have AstroTurf organizations like Sports Fan Coalition who will claim that these bills hurt consumer choice. They won't tell you that StubHub funded them. Recently, within the past week, thousands of families have been scammed by StubHub with World Cup tickets. The Sports Fan Coalition, silent. Scalpers will claim 1720 drives businesses underground to unregulated markets. Where are they now? On platforms like StubHub, where hundreds of California consumers are complaining every day. The secondary market brags about a 1% or less failure rate. When you buy from an actual ticket seller, that rate is 0. When families don't receive their tickets, they're forced into arbitration claims. Bradford Clements is filing those claims on behalf of buyers right now. StubHub has changed the arbitration notice address 6 times in the past year. 6 times. That's a shell game. Blame Ticketmaster, blame FIFA, blame the event producer, deny everything, and make counter accusations. Never admit the consumer damage from the secondary market or how much they're extracting from hardworking Californians every single show. AB 1720 removes the arbitrage opportunity for these speculators. It's been proven no other measure works. Please vote yes.
Excellent work, Randy. Thanks for doing God's work. Our next story is from Murray Stassen over at Music Business Worldwide. Google says AI training is fair use and copyright should be policed on outputs, not inputs. So Google published a 21-page policy paper just this last June 25th via President of Global Affairs Kent Walker, laying out its preferred approach to AI regulation, and copyright is a central plank. The core argument? Training AI models on publicly available web data is transformative, non-expressive use. Google compares it to an art student learning by walking through a gallery and should stay protected under fair use in the U.S. and text and data mining exceptions elsewhere.
So Google argues enforcement should focus on outputs. Does a specific generated piece copy an existing work rather than inputs, how the model was trained, and that automated similarity filters shouldn't make subjective infringement calls? Standard notice and takedown is the right tool.
Right. Google does throw a bone to rights holders. It backs machine-readable opt-out tags, its own Google Extended, says it's exploring new partnership and value exchange models, and notes it already pays for access to some non-public creative and educational content. It also voices support for the No Fakes Act on voice and likeness protection.
Right. And beyond copyright, the paper's headline proposal is FARO, Frontier AI Regulatory Organization, FARO, an industry-funded body modeled by FINRA or NERC that would set safety standards and audit only the most advanced frontier models, leaving everyday AI use governed by existing law. If it's illegal without AI, it's illegal with AI.
The timing is pointed. Google is simultaneously a defendant in an AI music suit. You may remember indie artists allege its Lyria 3 model trained on YouTube recordings without permission. Google's own defense is that the artists licensed their music via YouTube's terms of service. Meanwhile, the RIAA and major labels are suing Suno and Udio. Music publishers are pursuing a $3 billion or more suit against Anthropic over song lyrics. And Udio has already pivoted from a fair use defense to signing licensing deals with Universal, Warner, Merlin, and Cobalt.
That's right. So here's what you need to know. Number one, Google just went on record in a formal policy paper arguing AI training on public web data should be legally protected as fair use, a direct shot across the bow of every music industry copyright suit.
Number 2, the outputs not inputs framing is the crux. Google wants courts and regulators to judge AI on what it produces, not how the underlying model was built, which would sidestep the core claim in the RIAA and label suits against Suno and Udio.
Right. Number 3, Google is not a neutral commentator here. It builds its own AI music tool, like Lyria 3, and is currently being sued by independent artists over exactly this training data question, so its policy paper doubles as a legal defense strategy.
Right. Number 4, Google's rebuttal to the Lyria 3 suit is that artists already license their music simply by agreeing to YouTube's terms of service. Worth flagging to any artist manager listeners as a reminder to actually read those darn terms of service agreements.
That's right. And the art student in a gallery metaphor, that's doing a lot of work rhetorically. It's the same transformative use argument tech companies have made since the 2023 Copyright Office filings, just repackaged for the current regulatory push.
At a 6th point, Google says it opposes automated similarity filters, making subjective infringement calls, favoring old school notice and takedown instead, which could mean slower, more manual enforcement for rights holders trying to catch AI-generated sound alikes.
Right. Number 7, despite the fair use argument, Google says it's exploring quote-unquote value exchange deals with rights holders and already pays for some non-public content, a tacit acknowledgement that, pure fair use arguments may not hold or that licensing is good business regardless.
An 8th point they're making here, this lands right after Udio flipped from fighting fair use in court to signing licensing deals with UMG, WMG, Merlin, and Cobalt, and after the NMPA's industry-wide Udio deal, suggesting licensing, not litigation, may be where the market is actually heading, even as Google pushes the opposite legal theory.
Yeah, number 9, Sony Music's case against Udio remains active, even as its major label peers settled, and a judge recently denied Sony's bid to add some 30,000 plus recordings to that suit, a sign labels aren't unified on the strategy.
The number 10 point, the proposed FARO body, that's FARO, would only regulate the most advanced frontier models, meaning most commercially deployed AI music tools might fall outside its safety audit scope entirely.
Right. And Google explicitly backs the No Fakes Act that we talk about all the time for voice and likeness protection, separating that issue from training data copyright, a useful distinction for artists worried about both cloned vocals and unlicensed training data, since Google is picking a fight on one but not the other.
And the last point, watch for this paper to surface again in the Anthropic and Suno Udio litigation. Google's transformative use language is likely to be cited or contested directly in ongoing briefs. Wow.
Yeah,
God,
we'll be following
so
this
much going
closely.
on there. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And our final story this week, this is from Jesse Kirschbaum, our friend over at New Agency. The headline is "The Trends Defining Music, Culture, and Brand Marketing in 2026." So this is New Agency's Beats and Bytes halftime newsletter, halftime or mid-year commentary. And it covers the first half of 2026 across music, culture, and brand marketing. Here's a summary and some key takeaways.
Right. The core argument, young listeners, that's 13 to 24, are increasingly favoring music from the 1990s and earlier over 2020's releases, while catalog now drives roughly 65% of recorded music streaming revenue. The author frames this as both the industry's biggest problem and its biggest opportunity, coining the term living catalog, old music generating new value via AI rather than sitting dormant. He argues streaming subscriptions are nearing saturation, approaching 1 billion global subscribers, and predicts music will finally follow film, TV, sports, and gaming into premium exclusives.
Right. And from there, this article from Jesse, it ranges widely. AI as a creative enhancer rather than a threat, songs becoming remixable, platforms fans participate in rather than just consume, the ROI case for licensed audio and brand campaigns, a shift towards fan-captured concert footage as the real currency of live experiences, aging hip-hop artists becoming cultural commentators, and brands like Bose and Gap and Coke turning into de facto media and music companies.
Yeah, it also points out a call for Paramount to spin off MTV, the rise of prediction markets as an emerging music marketing channel, ongoing industry consolidation like the Universal and Downtown deal, Penske and Vox Media, and a closing thesis that culture is fragmenting and personalizing while human connection becomes more valuable as a counterweight to AI and screen time.
So here's what you need to know from this report. Number one, young listeners are turning to old music. Illuminate data shows 13 to 24-year-olds increasingly favor pre-2000s music, while love for 2020's releases is declining, even as catalog accounts for around 65% of streaming revenue.
Right. Living catalog, the author's framing for legacy music gaining new commercial life through AI-driven remixes, licensing, and reinterpretation instead of sitting just static in our vaults.
Right. And streaming subscriptions are nearing saturation. Like you said, we've talked about this. We're closing in on 1 billion subscribers globally, which the piece argues will force a shift toward premium exclusives, something every other content vertical like film, TV, sports, gaming, they already monetize it, but music doesn't yet.
And the article also is framing AI as a creative enhancer, not a replacement, contingent on IP guardrails actually being built for artists.
Right, and he talks about songs as platforms. Hits are increasingly defined by how much they get remixed, memed, and personalized by fans rather than just streamed. Participation is replacing plays as a success metric.
The article also talks about licensed audio-inclusive brand campaigns showing measurable lift, averaging 22% uplift across 14 different measures.
Yeah, and it gets into fan-captured content, being the real product of live events. The argument that documented proof of attendance now matters more than in-person experience itself to some people.
It also mentions brands are becoming media music companies directly, talking about Bose's media strategy, Gap's chief entertainment officer hire, and record labels launched by Coke and Havas.
Yeah, and a call to revive MTV as a live, culture-first, algorithm-era brand rather than a legacy, linear channel in the wake of the Paramount-Warner merger.
It also brings up the prediction markets like Polymarket, Kalshi, and Meta, and are flagged as an underdeveloped but potentially major new marketing channel for music with more than $400 million in music-related bets already placed on Polymarket this year.
Mm-hmm. And as we wind this down, consolidation is accelerating industry-wide. Universal's acquisition of Downtown and Penske's purchase of Vox Media's music culture brands, they're cited in this piece as signals of a maturing, scale-driven market.
Right. Overall, the points, as culture fragments and personalizes and AI accelerates content production, IRL experiences and authentic community relationships become the counterbalancing forces and the competitive edge for artists, brands, and platforms alike. Whew. Lots of stuff going on in this business of music, Jay. Lots and lots of stuff. Yeah. Hey, it's time to wrap up the show. Jay and I are certainly happy that you are here. If you do enjoy the show, just tell one friend. That would be really, really groovy. Big thanks to our sponsors, including Cosign. We sure appreciate their participation. Music is by our friends, the Licorice Quartet. And by the way, if you want to advertise in the podcast or on the newsletter, you can go over to yourmorning.coffee. So on behalf of my good friend Jay Gilbert, I'm Mike Etchart. Thanks for listening, and we will be back next week on the Your Morning Coffee Podcast.
You've been listening to Your Morning Coffee, the weekly music news program for the new music business. Join Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart next time for the digital music news you need to know.